So let's talk about culture for a minute, because so I had the great fortune of being in Memphis a few weeks ago and staying in the same hotel as all of the AutoZoners from around the country who'd come together for one of their conferences
Annual
or gatherings,
meetings,
annual conference. And I got to tell you, and I've been to the KIP gathering and TFA, et cetera. It had that same really amazing feel. And how did you think about that? And what, as you grew to 3,000 stores, how were you able to make sure that got passed along across the organization?
Well, let me back up, because it's sort of an interesting history. Is all the time I was running the food operations, we were always trying to figure out, how do we motivate the lowest paid hourly employee out there, because they're usually your front line with the customer, right? Yeah. And you're only as good as they are. Mm-hmm. And so we are constantly trying to figure out, how do we take this job that most of them just see as, it's an 8 to 5 job, I'm going to do my job, go home. How do we give meaning to this job, And so, we were fiddling with that, and we went and visited with the Disney folks, and we'd go visit with this folks. But probably the most meaningful thing the good fortune I had was that about 2 years before I started AutoZone, I was invited to go on the Walmart board. Mm-hmm. And at the time I went on the board of Walmart, they did $300 million in sales. And there were only 2 outside directors on the board, with Sam Stevens, which is an investment mm-hmm. banker from Arkansas, and myself, And of course, Sam and I got to know each other because he'd be, originally all he opened was in the small towns,
right. Right.
And so we would be going to opening one of our supermarkets in the town in the same center with the Walmart store. So we got to be friends. So he invited me on his board, and I mean, he was the classic. I mean, he was the greatest retailer of all time, and I learned a lot of things from him, And of course, just like he was the tightest guy on the planet, he had this but he turned it into part of his culture, a culture of thrift. Okay, yep. Just like when I'd go to the board meetings, he'd pick me up at the airport, and we'd drive 10 minutes to his office, which was in a warehouse. And I'd get out of the car, and I'd be covered in dog hair, because he had this 10-year-old Buick that he parked in his carport, and he'd roll the windows down and let the hunting dogs sleep in the car. Then we'd go in, and his board room was a buyer's breakdown room in the warehouse that had a tile floor, and he had metal cafeteria, 2 metal cafeteria tables pushed together with a white tablecloth over it. We had metal fold-up chairs, and this was the boardroom. And and so, but the thing that I really got to me is his thrift is he always preached and talked to all of his fellow Walmart people. He'd go out there and say, "Look, we're all in this together. We're going to all save every nickel, every dime." They recognize anybody that came up with a way to save money and all. But the reason we do this is because every dollar we save, we're going to put back into more stores, more opportunity for you, the Walmart employees, and, oh, by the way, your pension, all of it's in Walmart stock. Right. So, it was giving explanation of why we do things. The other thing that I learned from him, Sam was the first guy that I ever saw lead his employees in a cheer, the Walmart cheer, And so in this whole Up With People deal, and then additionally, the other thing is he was the first guy to come up with the productivity cycle, is what he called it, which was that as you gained leverage on the buy side, mm-hmm. or you were able to spread your central overhead through your growth in sales, any savings you got, rather than putting it on the bottom line in profit, he would put it in lower prices, so that he would constantly, his goal was to accelerate same-store sales growth, mm-hmm. which over time meant that he ended up, had a 5 to 6% expense advantage over Kmart and the rest of the guys, because he honed, as his base got bigger and bigger and bigger.